On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, SGA hurts his ankle. He's out until at least the All-Star break. What does that mean for the Thunder? Where do they go from here? Who's impacted the most by this? And does this change at all where the Thunder are headed? We're also going to talk about the Indiana Pacers game on Friday, but the Thunder lose in overtime. But before we do, of course, we have to talk about SGA's injuries. All that's coming up on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LOThunderPod and email the show, LOThunderPod@gmail.com. On today's show, we're going to dive into SGA being out until at least the All-Star break, the Thunder falling in overtime to the Pacers. Where did the Thunder go from this injury? How many games will Shai miss? And where are the Thunder sitting at right now? Who on this team is most impacted by this injury? And just what's happening in Oklahoma City? But the big news right now for the Thunder is that SGA has a sprained ankle, and he played 17 minutes on Friday, and the ankle sprain that suffered in that game looked bad. I said it on Twitter the moment it happened that it looked bad, and I said, luckily, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not going to diagnose anybody, but it did look like it was a pretty bad sprain. And come to find out, it was true. He finished the game with 17 minutes played, 10 points, 3 assists, 2 rebounds, 2 steals, and a block. He left the arena in crutches and a walking boot. And then the next day, OKC told the media that they would be reevaluating SGA at the All-Star break. Now, it's important to note that reevaluation does not mean a comeback date. Those two are not mutually exclusive. Like, he might come back post-All-Star break, but that's just when they're going to get their next look at him. And Mark said Sunday after practice that there's no further updates. He said that SGA was bouncing around at practice, was his lighthearted self at practice, and seemed fine given the circumstances. He said that SGA is not the first guy to ever get injured. It's just part of the process and all of that. And it seems like SGA is in good spirits after this injury. But look, I get it's frustrating. It's frustrating for SGA. It has to be. It's frustrating for the fans who are thinking automatically, deja vu, SGA's hurt now, and what if they shut him down for the season? What if he doesn't return this year? And, we're all rooting for SGA to be healthy, most importantly for his own health, but also to avoid those same jokes throughout this next offseason of, well, the Thunder won a little bit too much, and then they shut SGA down in a panic move. Well, the Thunder are 14-34 right now with SGA playing in more games this year than they did last year. So they're not winning too much, and there's not a great motive to shut down SGA. This was just a basketball play. It happens. In basketball, you're going to sprain an ankle. You're going to get hurt. And we have a precedent for this within this organization right now with Vit Krejci getting hurt before Christmas with a sprained right ankle, and he's not back yet. These things can happen. Vit Krejci, of course, got hurt in the NBA G League Showcase and has not played since that championship game whenever he rolled his ankle. These things happen in basketball all the time. And SGA will miss at least 10 games because, again, they're going to reevaluate him at the All-Star break, and he'll either come back post-All-Star break or thereafter. But in the meantime, we know for sure he'll miss 10 games. It'll start tonight against Portland, and then Dallas, and then Portland again, and then Sacramento, Golden State, Toronto, Philadelphia, Chicago, New York, and San Antonio. Some very important games in this stretch. You'd imagine that winning teams like Golden State, like Toronto, like Philadelphia, like Chicago, and a scrappy New York team that wants to kind of ensure their way into the playoffs as they sit right now on the outside looking in, that they're going to be up for that game and they're going to be able to beat you, right? And Dallas is known for being rocky this year, and they lost tonight to the Magic. So you just never know what Dallas is going to bring. So you would imagine on paper Dallas beats Oklahoma City, but in reality, maybe that's not the case. And then you have some important games in the sense of for your own merit. You play Portland twice, who right now is 9th on Tankathon right now, and it is 6.5 games worse than you. You play them twice. You play Sacramento, who is about 3 games worse than you right now on Tankathon. They sit at 5, you're at 4. And then you play San Antonio, who's teetering there with 4 games back of Oklahoma City as well, 4.5 games back of Oklahoma City as well. So these are 10 very important games to not have SGA. He's played 43 games this year. He played 35 last year. This year, he's averaging 22 points per game. He's averaging, 5 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal, shooting 42% from the floor, just 27% from 3, and he improved at the line to 81%. The Thunder sit 14-34 right now on a 7-game losing streak, 1 for 9 in their last 10 games, 4.5 out of the worst record in the NBA. Right now, they have a 12.5% chance of getting the first overall pick. They have a 48% chance of getting a top 4 pick. The Magic, who's ahead of the Thunder in the Tankathon standings, have gone 4-6 in the last 10 games. Pistons have gone 3-7, and Houston has gone 3-7 in the last 10 games. Sacramento has lost 6 straight games. So you play coming up. We'll see how their schedule lightens up for them or whatever it happens before the Thunder play them on game 4 of this SGA-less stint in these 10 games. Indiana is 3-7 in the last 10 games. Of course, that was a big game Friday where they beat the Thunder, but they sit tied for 5th as well with Sacramento, and you're at 4th right now in those Tankathon standings. And the biggest thing is that Clippers pick, which sadly for the Thunder, you had to root for injuries. Not root for them. Everyone hopes that Paul George and Kawhi could have been healthy and could have been and could have been playing and seeing the best stars play in this game that we all love. But it is idealistic for the Thunder that their 2 stars are out because they control the Clippers' unprotected pick. And given that it seems like Paul George and Kawhi are not wavering from the Clippers and are going to be there long term and be invested in that organization probably until the end, but of course anything can happen in the NBA. Considering all those facts, you figure that this would be the very best Clippers pick of that entire group. And the Clippers, even without Kawhi, even without Paul George, are exactly 500 right now at 26-26. They're finding ways to win. I said it on Friday. They remind me of last year's Thunder team. You don't know how they're winning. On paper, they shouldn't be, but they have these comebacks. They have these games where they just outperform teams, and teams overlook them, and teams just try to cruise past them. And they have enough scrappy young players that you can't do that. You just can't. And so that also impacts the future for the Thunder, because the difference in the Clippers staying around 500 and bottoming out is dramatic to the Thunder organization when you factor in that unprotected Clippers pick. So that's where the Thunder sit right now. And this SGA injury means that they might change where they're going from here on out. I mean, there's a lot to get to, like the trade deadline plans, like the future plans of this season, who's most impacted this year, what's the best and worst case scenario and most likely case scenario for the Thunder, and will this at all have any impact on SGA and his long-term happiness with the Oklahoma City Thunder organization? So a lot to get to on Locked On Thunder. Thank you for making Locked On Thunder your first listen every single morning, every single day. We're here for you talking Thunder basketball. Make sure you subscribe for free across all platforms so you never miss an episode, including the new platform of YouTube. Subscribe over there as well. For your second listen, go check out the Locked On NBA podcast. Jackson Gatlin covers you on Mondays and gets you around the association to recap the weekend that was and ensures you're going to be caught up to date on what's happening around the association. So it's a lot of fun. And go subscribe to Locked On NBA on whatever podcast catcher you use, and also on the Locked On NBA YouTube page, because there you'll find a trade deadline show as well. So make sure you go subscribe over there for free across all platforms. 5-day-a-week content from all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Also, I want to talk about our good friends over at Built Bar. Built Bar is a fantastic protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. Go to BuiltBar.com. Use the promo code LOCK15. Get 15% off of your next order. It is a fantastic protein bar that tastes just like a candy bar. It's amazing that it only has 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which typically has around 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and a dozen net carbs. Here's an idea for the new year. Go and take out all your secret stashes of treats and empty calories, throw them all away, and get a Built Bar. Because, folks, Built Bars truly work for your fitness journey. They've helped me out so far starting mine because there's so many flavors you cannot get bored of them. and every flavor has 100% chocolate on the outside to kind of satisfy that chocolatey craving that you might have. So try them out today. They have flavors like raspberry, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, my personal favorite, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, all that fun stuff. Built Bar is always coming out with brand new flavors, so routinely check back at built.com. That's built.com. Use the code LOCK15 to get 15% off of your next order. That's LOCK15, 15% off of your next order at built.com. We are back on the Locked On Thunder Podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Make sure you go subscribe to the Locked On NBA YouTube page, because I told you we have that NBA trade deadline special coming up, and you're not going to want to miss that, because the trade deadline is Thursday, February 10th at 3 p.m. Eastern, and the Locked On NBA Podcast will cover you for a live event from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Eastern. Join Kim Becker, John Corrales, Locked On Fantasy Basketball host Josh Lloyd, and get an expert analysis from our NBA insider, Antonio Daniels, who, of course, is phenomenal and was the pre- and post-game show host for the Thunder for years and years and years, NBA veteran as well. So get his insight on this as well. Subscribe to the Locked On NBA YouTube page. Turn on those notifications whenever they go live, and you'll see that show again, February 10th, 2 p.m. Eastern, which, of course, is 1 p.m. local Central Time. So go check them out for the trade deadline special. The Thunder, if they make any moves, if they hop in the fray, I'll be on there as well, reacting to those moves. We have you covered with a local experts and analysis from every NBA team. It's a lot of fun. Join the party here at the Locked On Podcast Network. Now let's talk about, where did the Thunder go from here? Where did the Thunder move after this SGA injury? The trade deadline, again, is February 10th. And you wonder, does this change the plan for Mike Muscala or Kenny Hustle, who are two guys that the Thunder have been shopping on the deadline? Obviously, kind of two of the more obvious trade candidates on this team. You can also throw in Derek Favors, but Favors has that player option that might not be appealing to teams necessarily. Of course, now with the back injury, although he was not on the injury report this evening heading into Monday's game, so we'll see if he can play in that game or not. But it's mainly Kenrich Williams and Mike Muscala, with Favors being on the back burner because of that player option that he's obviously going to take, and hurts his value in that way with his contract. And you just wonder, does this trade how the Thunder view the deadline? And it's another case where I say to you, I don't envy Sam Presti's job in this aspect. There's a lot of aspects I do envy his job, but in one where you can easily argue either side and there's not a clear wrong answer, that makes decisions a lot harder. Because if there's no clear wrong answer right now, we're only going to judge these moves at the deadline with hindsight. That's it. And so that's an unfair position to put Sam Presti in. And so I don't envy that job of his in this scenario. And when you look at their trade deadline plans, I think that what it can do is impact Kenrich Williams more so than Mike Muscala. And maybe not in the way that you might think, because I look at this team right now, and the reevaluation word to me is very important. Didn't say he's out until the All-Star break, just said he's going to be up for reevaluation at the All-Star break. That makes me feel skittish on if he's going to be back immediately following the All-Star break, like on that February 26th game that they play. I don't know if he'll be back immediately then, after the break. So this likely extends past the All-Star break at least a little bit, if not a lot of it. And at that point, this team, let's just call it what it is, will be as bad record-wise as they can get. Whenever you don't have SGA on the floor, this team barely looks like an NBA team. That's just the fact of the matter. That's the way the roster is set up. That's the way that the goal is made for this season. They still have nice parts. They still have guys who try hard. They still have guys who give good effort. But without the heart and soul of their team, they're a very, very bad team. Because even while SGA is giving you all he has, and we said all last week how exhausted SGA looked, how he was playing 38 minutes a night, how he was trying to go out there and get these wins for the Thunder and stop this losing streak, and yet still, with his 100% effort and only missing the second half of that Pacers game, the Thunder have gone 1-9 in the last 10 games and have lost 7 straight games. So now you take him off the team for all intents and purposes for these next 10 games or beyond these next 10 games, and you struggle to find a way that they can win basketball games. Now, Mark's a really good head coach. They still have a lot of talent, just as an individual aspect from Giddey and Mann and Kenny Hustle and Muscala and these kind of individual talented guys. How do they kind of become cohesive? How do they kind of gel together? Well, that SGA is a big question mark. And of course, they're going to find wins without SGA. They've done it before. Whenever Josh Giddey got that triple double against Dallas, and I think they came up short in that game, but still, like they found a rhythm and they found a way to kind of elevate themselves without SGA in that way. But all in all, this is as bad as the team can get. And so all that to say, what it can do for the trade deadline is really allow Sam Presti the ability to stick to that first round asset and that first round asking price for Kenny Hustle. Because last week when we talked about the deadline, I said, I know that it might sound crazy on the surface to non-Thunder fans that Kenrich Williams is worth a first round pick or that they're demanding a first round pick. And it's easy to make those jokes about Sam Presti and compiling first round picks. But the thing is, when you have Kenrich Williams and you have somebody like him that you're not sure if you want to trade him or not, he's on that borderline where he's not young, but he's also not old. And he's expressed a desire to retire in Oklahoma City, to be here long term, to see through this rebuild, to be a culture setting guy, and to be someone who can glue these generations together, if we want to call it that, and bridge the gap and get you back to a winning ways. When you have a guy like that you're not sure if you want to give up, you set a first round pick asking price, and I said this a week ago, with the idea in mind of if somebody meets it, look, we've got to trade you, man, because we got you as a salary cap filler and you almost didn't make the team a year ago, and we have an offer now to trade you for a first round pick. If a team doesn't meet that price, then you say, okay, we wanted to keep him anyway. We liked what he brings to the table. He likes us. Let's move on. Let's move forward with Kenny Hustle. No skin off our back. And so the reason that this move impacts the deadline for Kenny Hustle to me is that you can truly stay firm in that stance now because there's no motives anymore. When you do not have SGA, the worry of winning too many games, the worry of winning one extra game that's going to cost you the first overall pick, all that worry goes out the window without SGA on this specific team. And so you can afford to not pull any more levers, whatever the Down the Dunk crew came up with that phrase. Shout out to Andrew Schlecht. You can afford not to pull any more of those levers because you've pulled the biggest one. SGA got hurt. And this team's going to be really bad because of it. So now you're not panicking to sell off pieces to make sure you can fight back in the battle with Houston. You're a half a game out of Houston right now for having the third worst record in the league. And if you get that third worst record, you'd be tied for the highest odds you can get at the first overall pick. You cannot do better than 14% chance at the top overall pick. And the 1, 2, 3 teams on Tinkathon.com on the reverse standings have those odds to get the top overall pick. So you're a half game back of doing the best you can do. The best you can do. And now you don't have SGA. So with all that being said, it allows you to monitor Kenny Hustle in a way that you otherwise wouldn't, right? Because we've seen Kenrich Williams win this team games. We've seen his lack of being there and during this COVID stretch lose this team games, not because of him personally, but again, because he was out, that we've seen games where you say after the game, had they had Kenrich Williams, they win that basketball game. And again, to non-Thunder fans that don't watch this team night in and night out and don't watch how this team is with and without Kenny Hustle, that sounds insane, but it's true. And you no longer have that worry with SGA being out for a prolonged amount of time. Because again, the All-Star break is a reevaluation date, not a return date. Now, they might reevaluate him at the All-Star break and notice, hey, he's good to go. He's 100%. But there's a good chance that they don't have him at 100%. And in this season, with the way that the record's gone and, what's on the line long-term in this draft, there's not a reason to play him if he's not 100%. And I know for fans that sucks. You want to watch SGA play every game possible. You want to watch what he can do. He's an all-star caliber player. He's a guy that just makes these games so much more enjoyable. But that's what's best for this organization long-term and for SGA long-term. And we're going to get into that coming up about will that play a factor in how happy SGA is with this team or how do the Thunder manage the situation to make SGA the happiest? We're going to talk about all that coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at the Locked On Bets podcast. Make sure you go check out Locked On Bets. It's a daily podcast giving you betting info. So they're literally winning you money 5 days a week for free across all platforms. We are back on the Locked On Thunder Podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I'm your host, Rylan Stiles. You can follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. It's at RYLAN_STILES. You can follow the show on Twitter at LO Thunderpod. email the show, lothunderpod@gmail.com. So again, I do not think that this impacts Mike Muscala's trade deadline moves. I don't really see the Thunder moving Muscala, but again, anything can happen. I think that it does impact Kenny Hustle more than Muscala. But at the end of the day, you got to take what's best for the organization, right? You got to do what's best for the organization long term. If that's trading Kenny Hustle and that's trading Muscala, so be it. And the question naturally becomes, is SGA going to be shut down for the season again? It happened last year with the plantar fasciitis. Will it happen again this year? Is it deja vu all over again? And to me, I think that the worry is that it will be a season-ending injury, but personally, I don't view it that way. Because I think that the way you view this is the way you felt last season, right? Last season, I thought everything was on the up and up. I thought that SGA was not 100%, therefore, they didn't play him. I thought that it was evident he was not 100% whenever he did not play in the Olympics, something that he's been asked about and talks about wanting to do since before the Olympic year even started. Like, he's wanted, made it clear he wants to play for Team Canada even before last year started. So why wouldn't he play if it was just some mastermind Sam Presti scheme to not have him play games in the NBA? Why wouldn't he play for Team Canada? I think that he was truly hurt last year. I think that last year was truly not himself, was not 100%, and couldn't play. And therefore, the Thunder didn't play him. And therefore, he didn't play for Team Canada. Now, if you're somebody on the outside looking in and you're saying, well, I think that it was just some grand scheme and Sam Presti was an evil man and shut down SGA and robbed us of SGA and free SGA because he forced SGA not to play in the NBA and he forced SGA not to play in the Olympics. Well, then you're going to think that this is all made up too. However, we literally saw the ankle injury. There's no hiding it, and it looked bad in real time. And again, we do have precedent for a lingering ankle injury that has lasted a long time. But Krejci being out since before Christmas. We're now a month removed from that plus. And he's still out today on the injury report for an ankle injury. Obviously, Vit is a different candidate than SGA, who's your best player and your franchise player and your max player that has no opt-outs in his contract. I think that the Thunder are going to still operate on the up and up. I just do. There's been no indication that they're not operating that way. There's been no indication from Shai or from his camp or from the Thunder or from their camp that there's some grand scheme. There's been no reports. And I always have the philosophy in the NBA of don't go hunting for drama. Drama will find you. You don't have to look for it. There's no reason to look for drama. It's around the corner in the NBA all the time, and you don't have to manufacture it. So do I think that SGA plays again this year? Yes, I do. If he doesn't play this year, though, do I think it's some convoluted scheme? No, I think he's just not ready to play. And does this impact SGA's happiness with the Thunder? To me, it doesn't, because the Thunder have a track record of being very transparent with every player and a track record of being very, especially transparent with star players. And they're going to explain the plan to him. He'll have input on the plan, and they'll move on from there. So if SGA decides to want out of Oklahoma City, to me, it will not be pointed back to this specific management of his injury. And if it is, well, then there's a bigger problem there, and we'll deal with that when we get there. But again, I'm not going to search out drama in the NBA, which is a drama-filled sport year-round. And now, who's kind of the most impacted by the Thunder with this injury for this season? This season, I think it's going to be Josh Giddey and Trey Mann. I think Josh Giddey will be the point guard from now on. Of course, so these next 10 games that SGA's out, and then however much longer he's out past that. But these next 10 games, who's the most impacted? To me, it's Josh Giddey and Trey Mann. Then Josh Giddey's going to be the leading point guard, the leading guard, the starting guard. And then Trey Mann probably gets more starts now. And Trey Mann probably elevates himself into a much cleaner role where he's playing 25-plus minutes a night without SGA. And then Josh Giddey called him an elite shot maker today, an elite shot creator today after practice. And those two working together with the rookies and Wiggins getting back in the rotation as well after missing the rotation Friday for some reason. I think that all that is a plus for the Thunder. Getting to see Josh Giddey in a more natural state, especially right now as the NBA season starts wearing on guys. And you can see parts of the last 2 weeks where these young guys have hit that rookie wall a bit and kind of need that time off, need that energy boost. Well, while you can't get time off yet because you're still 10 games away from the All-Star break, what you can get is an energy boost in the fact of a new challenge and a new opportunity and a new role. And that can naturally boost your energy of trying to find new ways to thrive in these new sets of circumstances. So maybe that helps energize the team and pushes them past the All-Star break hump and gets them over the All-Star break hump where they're playing with more energy down the stretch. How bad will the Thunder be without SGA? I would imagine pretty bad. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. They're 1-9 right now, and that was it with SGA giving you all he had to try to win these games recently. It's just not coming to fruition. But crazier things have happened. They're not going to go winless, I don't think. But it'll be tough sledding to get that big win. Best case scenario for the Thunder is that Josh Giddey compiles a few triple doubles and we have a lot of fun. The worst case scenario is that the Thunder look like they can't hit water out of a boat offensively, and they just are completely lost and get beat by 80 points one more time this year. And the most likely case scenario is that the Thunder just kind of keep being the Thunder, right? Like they keep being the bottom 4 team in the league, and they probably make some ground on Houston. They probably end up being a bottom 3 team in the league this year, which would be good for the Thunder and would really help their organization and really help their future. So we'll see. We'll see when the rest gets back. I think it'll play again. What do you think? Tell me in the comment section down below or on Twitter at Ryland_Styles. And until tomorrow, recap the Portland game. Be good and be good to one another.